In this video, we will deploy a Ktor application on an AWS EC2 instance and configure Nginx as a reverse proxy. You can follow along even if you are using a different JVM backend framework such as Spring or Spring Boot, since the step we cover will apply to any of them as they all utilize jar file for deployment. We are using AWS in this video. You can follow the same process with any other cloud provider as they also offer similar services like AWS EC2. So let's begin with configuring EC2 instance. I am already logged into my AWS account. Now we can search for EC2. Now to create a new instance, we can click on this instances. Now we can click on this launch instances to create a new EC2 instance. We can name the instance, so let's name it as Ktor sample. Now we can select the OS image. I will go with the Ubuntu. If you are compatible with any other Linux distribution, you can go for them. For the instance type, we can go with the T2 micro. In case if you want to use different, you can go with any other. But for testing, it should be enough, and it also has the free tier. Now, when we want to access the remote machine instance from our local machine, we can SSH into this machine. So for that, we'll need to create a key pair. So we can click on create new key pair. We can name the pair as Ktor sample, and we can go with the RSA and format as PEM, and then finally we can click on this create key pair. So using this key pair, we will be logging into the server from our local machine. Now for the security group, we can check both allow HTTPS from internet and allow HTTP. This will enable port 80 and this will enable port 443, and for SSH we have port 22. So these three ports will be enabled. For the storage, I will go with the default one, and we can leave the advanced details as it is, and we can finally click on the launch instance. So we have successfully run our instances, so we can see within here as well. Now to connect to this instance from our local machine, we can select this instance and click on this connect, and we can select the SSH client. To be able to access this EC2 instance from our local machine, we can SSH into this machine. So we can open up the terminal and run the command chmod 400 and specify the path for the PEM file that we generated earlier. So you might have downloaded that file and you need to specify the path for that file. So what this command does is it will modify the permission for this PEM file to ensure it is readable only by the file owner and not writable or executable by anyone. Now we can run this command. Now to be able to log in into this machine, we can run the SSH. So we can copy this command and we can paste it over here, and we need to specify the path for the PEM file. So we can copy this path and paste it over here. So let's understand this command. So here this SSH stands for secure shell. It is basically a network protocol used to securely access and manage remote servers or machine over a network. It encrypts the data exchange between the client, which currently is this local machine, and the server, the remote machine that we configured on the AWS, ensuring the privacy and security during the communication. Then we specified this -i flag, which is used to specify the authentication file. So for authentication, we are specifying the path of the PIM file that we generated. And finally, this Ubuntu refer to the root user in our machine, and this is the public DNS for our remote server. Now we can run this command and you can say yes, and finally we are able to log in into our machine. So you can say Ubuntu at and the IP address. Now we can run the clear. Now let's try to upload the Ktor server jar file in this machine. So for the jar file, let's first create a directory. So we can run mkdir and let's say my jars. Now if you ls, we get the my jars directory. We will copy the jar file from our local machine to this remote machine. So let's exit from here, and now we are in the local machine. Now let's try to generate the jar file and upload it to the my jars directory within our remote server. This is a simple Ktor application, and feel free to deploy your Spring or Spring Boot application as well. You can simply generate the jar file and then we can simply upload that jar file and run in our remote machine. For this Ktor application, you can click on this Gradle, and within this task you should be able to find this shadow, and over here you can click on this shadow jar task. So using this shadow jar task, we can generate a jar file that we can run in our remote machine. So let's run this shadow jar task, and it is successful. Now we can open up this build folder, and within the ellipse we can find the jar file. Let's try to upload this jar file using SCP, which stands for the Secure Copy Protocol. So we can copy and paste the SSH command, and in this SSH command we will need to change it to SCP, and after that we need to specify the path of the file that we want to copy to the remote machine. So we need to specify the path for this jar file. So for that, it is within the downloads directory. So I have the path as, first we specified the path for the PEM file, the authentication file, and this is the path for the file that we want to copy from the local machine to the remote machine. Now we also need to specify the location where we want to copy this file. So within our server, we created a directory myjars. So we can specify the directory using the colon and followed by the directory name. So this file will be copied within the myjars directory. Now if we run this command, so as you can see the file upload is completed. So now let's check within our remote machine. So we can SSH into our remote machine. Let's run the clear command, and we can cd into my jars, and if we run the ls, so as you can see we successfully copied the jar file from our local machine to this remote machine. Now to run this jar file within this remote server, we need to run the command java -jar, and we need to specify the file name. So it's Ktor sample all, and as you can see we get to see this error. Now in order to run this application, we need to install the JDK. So let's first clear. To install the JDK, we can use the command sudo apt install, and let's install JDK 17. So we can say open JDK -17-jdk. Now let's run this command and we can say yes. Now let's run clear. So we install the JDK. Now if we try to run the application again, as you can see, we get to see the application running. Now let's configure Nginx and try to access this application using the IP. So for that, let's first stop this application. First, we need to install the Nginx in our server. So for that, we can say sudo apt install Nginx. And we can run this command. We can say yes. Now we can enable Nginx and start the Nginx. So for that, we can say sudo systemctl enable Nginx, and we can say sudo systemctl start Nginx. Now to check if Nginx is successfully installed or not, we can make the GET request to the root IP. So for IP, this is our public IP, so we can copy this. So once we make HTTP request, you can see this welcome to Nginx. So this indicates that we have successfully configured the Nginx in our server. Currently, as you can see, our Ktor application has this route in the root. So in order to access this, we need to configure the Nginx. So let's create a configuration file within the sites available directory in the /nginx. So for that we can use the nano command. So we can say sudo nano and we want to create file within /nginx, and within this we have the sites available directory, and within this directory we want to create the configuration for our Ktor application. So we can say let's give name as example.com. For this configuration file you can specify the domain or subdomain like api.example.com or example.com. So we can run this command, and within this we can add the server configuration. So let me quickly paste that. And for all these commands, you can refer to the link in the video description. Here first we are specifying the listen. So it will listen to the port 80, which is for HTTP, and here we are specifying the server name. So server name is basically the IP address, public IP address. So you can get the IP address from the instance details over here and you can add it. And in this server name, you can also specify your custom domain or subdomain name. So you can specify something like api.example.com. To be able to access these APIs using this, you'll need to configure within the DNS settings. So in the DNS settings, you need to add the area code for the subdomain that you specify over here. If you are specifying example.com, then you need to add the area code for this example.com, and that area code will contain this IP address. So using this server name, you can specify both IP as well as the custom domain. So using this location, we can specify the path. We can specify something like API, so that now for every endpoint within the Ktor application, you need to prepend the path by API to be able to access. For now, I'll leave it to the root path. So what this proxy pass does is, it will redirect the request made to this IP or this domain to the Ktor application that is running locally in the server at localhost 8080. Currently we don't have setup for this custom domain, so we can simply remove this. In case if you want to connect to the custom domain, then you need to add the area code in the DNS configuration. We can say Control X, then Y and enter. Now we have created the configuration. Currently, this configuration is not enabled. It is present in the sites available directory. Now we need to move this to the sites enabled. So for that, we can make use of sudo and ln -s, and we can specify this path, and we want to copy this configuration to sites enabled. So we can say /etc/nginx slash sites enabled. Now what this command does is it will create a symbolic link from the nginx configuration file in the sites available to the sites enabled, allowing nginx to recognize and use the configuration. So now we can run this command. We can reload the nginx configuration using sudo systemctl reload nginx. So using this command, we can reload the configuration. Also, let's restart the nginx. So we can say sudo systemctl restart nginx. Now, if we reload this, okay, we are getting this 502 bad gateway. So in order to resolve this, we need to run our application. Currently, if you see within the port 8080, there are no any application running. So we need to run our application. So to run the application, we can use the java -jar and specify the file path. So it's Ktor sample. And if we run this, now if we reload, we should be able to access since we have a GET request at the root path which respond with text hello world, and we are able to access using this IP. Now there is one issue, like currently if you try to exit from the server, then application will also close. So if we do Control C and reload, you will get the bad gateway. So in order to keep application running, we can make use of no op. So we can say no op, and we can say java -jar and specify the path of Ktor application. Now if we run this will run the application and all the logs will be written in this noop.output file. Now still we are not able to exit. So let's run Control C and we can run same command and append a ampersand. So using this ampersand symbol, we can run this Ktor application in the detach mode. So now if we run, we can still get access to the terminal. Now we can even exit from our server, still our application will be running. So now you can see our application is running. Also if you ls, you can see the noob.out. If you print the content in this file, you can see the server logs. All the logs within the server will be written to this noob.out file. Even if we exit, so let's first clear, and let's say if I exit from the server and if we reload, we are still able to access the endpoint. So using the noob command, we can run application even after the exiting from the server. So that should be it for this video. Thanks for watching and happy coding.